Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our AI webinar. I'm Aya Uwalati, and I'm going to be your host for this morning. Thank you for joining us today as we explore how SMEs can take practical and impactful steps into the world of AI as it is ever growing. I'm just going to jump straight in. So we've got a lineup of four fantastic speakers who'll share their insights and can benefit all sectors. So we're going to just dive straight in. Our first speaker is Christie from GSG Global Solutions, and Christie helps SMEs transform their organizations by combining structure, technology, and AI-driven solutions, and to just build more resilient, valuable, and high-performing businesses. Over to you, Robin.
Great. Good morning, everybody. Great. Good morning, everybody. My name is Robin Christie from GSG, and I'm just first of all going to share my screen. Is that can everybody see that?
No, nothing.
Right. Okay. Is that it? Can you see that?
No.
Okay. Right. Okay. So apologies for this.
Perfect.
You can see that now, yeah?
Yeah, can you
Great.
just
Okay.
bring up to full size?
We can see the personal view, not the presenter view. So you just need to change what page you're showing.
Sorry, I don't see where. Sorry, the Zoom's not my piece. Sorry, can you just
So if you want to just hit switch display at the top of your screen on the top left-hand side. Do you want to stop sharing and start again? Because that can be easier.
Right, come on. Right. Sorry about this, chat, everybody. Right.
Robin, if you have any issues as a backup, I'm happy to do it, okay?
Okay. Can you do that? Can you share the screen? So
Let's see if this works. Has this worked?
Yes.
Yeah, good. I just need to be on full screen.
Perfect.
Okay. Right. Okay. So Neelam,
Yes.
can we just miss that the survey? Would you like to do the survey, please?
Are you happy to take over now?
No, why don't you do the survey piece?
Fantastic. Okay, no worries. Okay, well, look, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's event. One of the things that the panel thought it might be useful would be to actually just understand where you are on your AI journey. So we pulled a little survey together just to describe some categories that you might relate to. And it would be helpful if you could use the chat to maybe just give us a the top three things that you think, yeah, that's me today. That's why I've come onto this webinar. So if you would just take a moment just to type into the chat. Robin, because I'm doing my screen share, I can't see the chat, so I'll need your help just to navigate that, please.
Okay. Okay, so we've got a spread. We've got a spread, as we were expecting, Neelam. Yes, we've got a spread because it's obviously quite a wide subject. And so that's showing through from people coming through with the survey. Okay. So with that, can we yeah, there's quite a few on 4 actually. And 1. All right, okay. So can we progress now, Neelam? Okay, so Good morning, everyone. Sorry about the little technology mishap. Okay, so I've got to be in my best behavior this morning and get through my presentation in 7.5 minutes, 8 minutes maximum. So here's a quick look at what we're going to discuss today. The problem, the solution, the 6 things you have to strive for, and a big message at the end that AI is not about technology. It's a holistic, cross-functional exercise. Right, Neelam, can I get the next? Okay, and here, so seatbelts on, and here we go, 7 minutes. The AI revolution is already here and well underway. The technology is incredibly powerful and improving at speed, but make no mistake, it represents a double-edged sword. It gives you a huge opportunity to transform your business, and at the same time, it gives your competition the chance to destroy it. In previous major advances in technology, late adoption was an uncomfortable but manageable burden. People muddled through. This time, the AI revolution threatens to create a huge divide between the early adopters and the rest. A unique factor is the speed at which the technology is developing. One important consideration when you're looking at AI as a business is that it affects everybody, businesses, employees, customers, suppliers. Like you, all of them are very conscious about AI and its impact on their lives and their future livelihood. Their ability to succeed in 5 years' time depends on how they learn how to use AI today. They all want to know who's going to help them, support them, and partner them to make the most of the AI revolution. So putting all these things into the melting pot, we've created a framework we call Get Ready for AI, which I think is a solution, and every business should be starting to implement a Get Ready for AI strategy now. So can we get the next slide, please, Neelam, please? So what does Get Ready for AI look like? We believe that the right solution has 6 key elements. They all need to be progressed carefully and thoughtfully at the same time. First, and Neelam, can you just hit the button when oh no, you have to go back now. Sorry, okay, that's fine. Sorry, can you just go back, please? Yeah. So first, data has been increasingly important over the last 20 years, but for AI, it's crucial. The more data you can feed into AI tools, the better their output. Today, Alan is going to talk about some key factors relating to data. Second, infrastructure. Once you've organized your data, you need to give everyone in your business 24/7 access to it. And at the same time, protect it against cyber bandits who are using AI to attack many more businesses. Okay, good. Excellent. Thanks, Neelam. Today, David is going to talk about cybersecurity. Third, you've got to audit your portfolio of business software and establish how much AI is already incorporated into your applications and how can you best use that AI capability. Also, you need to make sure you're backing the right providers. You need to back winners and not losers in the AI revolution, because backing a software provider who cannot keep pace is going to hold your business back, and most likely in a significant way at a significant time. Fourth, in a highly competitive, fast-moving world, the quality of your teams is going to be the secret to your success. With AI, you can transform their productivity, help them communicate and collaborate with your customers much more effectively. To achieve these benefits, you first need to create the right winning mindset within your teams. Fifth, your strategy for implementing AI is going to be vital. You've got to develop the right vision for the AI revolution and how your business will be a winner. Then you need to demonstrate to your employees and your customers your commitment to implementing that vision. And within this, we get back to the very important point. As I said, everyone is conscious about the need to compete in an AI world. If the key talent and your key customers do not see your business having a winning AI strategy, they're going to very quickly look for someone else who has. Communicating an effective vision for the AI revolution helps convince them that you are going to be AI proficient. And building an AI proficient culture is also a very good way to demonstrate this too. In a few minutes, Neelam is going to discuss how you can achieve an AI proficient culture. And so the 6th thing is the huge question that we're all asking. How are we all going to take advantage of this AI revolution and a once-in-a-generation shift in our marketplaces and create for our business a strong winning advantage? You're only going to be able to formulate and implement that business strategy if first you have gone through and achieved key elements 1 to 5. So the key elements, the 6 goals from a Get Ready for AI strategy is to build an AI proficient culture, build empowered high-performing teams, build a data-driven business, invest in the right business applications, prioritize your cybersecurity, and develop a winning business strategy for AI. These are your goals. And for this presentation, I just want to give you the next 4 takeaways. Neelam, if we can just. So when you're looking at AI and how you're going to incorporate into your business, it's a holistic, cross-functional exercise. It's not just about technology. It requires strong leadership, and it requires constant communication of your vision. And above all, it's about building the right proficient AI proficient culture in your business. If you do all this, you'll reap the highest of rewards, which is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Neelam, can we go on to the next slide, please? Good. So there again, once again, I'm Robin Christie, and GSG is the company. We've also provided, can you do another click, Neelam? All right, okay, no, so, okay. We've also provided, if you can click on this, and we'll also send you a QR code where you can get the full overview of this presentation. And also in the presentation pack, we've created a presentation pack which will help you on your AI journey, which covers the points I've just covered here. Okay, Neelam, thank you very much. And thank you for your help in getting me out of a very tight spot. Thank you.
So Robin, do you want to hand off to Alan next, yeah?
Yes, please. Yeah,
Next
sorry.
speaker?
Yes, Neelam. I'm
Sure,
sorry. I thought you were.
sure.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me on the webinar. I'm Alan, co-founder and CTO of a company called nPlan. We've been around for 8 years now. Feels like a century, but also feels like yesterday. We've built an AI platform that helps typically large-scale projects, of which West London has seen and is continuing to see many. But we forecast what's going to happen to them, and we give them a way to prevent bad versions of the future. It's been a long journey, and I think one of the most important things that underpins all of it is data, right? And we wouldn't have been able to build any AI, not just nPlan, but anyone, if there wasn't the correct data to train it. So there's going to be a lot of questions in your head, I'm sure, about how can we use the data, and what sort of data, and how do we treat it, and how do we process it? And it is effectively a very messy world. And one of the things that I've noticed over the last 5, 6, 7 years is that there's definitely a transition that's happening. If you were building a machine learning company in 2017, that data would have to be structured. It would have to be rigid. It would have to be following certain guidelines or maybe some standards. And now with the transition to large language models and AI, we're seeing a softening of these boundaries, where documents can be completely unstructured and we're able to extract the content and even create structure from unstructured documents. And this is incredibly important if we want to build new processes, if we want to build new ways of doing things, but also sometimes automate things that maybe are boring, uninteresting, or frustrating, because messy data is messy. And usually the messier the data, the more of it there is. I think some of the things that I would put forward as recommendations and ideas are, first of all, if you're not in one of the ecosystems, Office 365 or Google Workspace, or plenty of others are available. But those ecosystems have something that is incredibly powerful, and they've developed it really fully in the last 6 months, which is all the data that you have in your Office 365 environment, for example, is accessible to Copilot. And that is incredibly unstructured data, right? Think about emails and your random documents, contracts, whatever else that you might have, even your annual returns, right? Which annual returns are a little bit more structured, but definitely messy. And so those tools could be a great ground floor entry point that has a very low barrier to entry to take that unstructured data and do something with it. So all of a sudden, the limitation are the ideas that you can come up with. How can you use this data, and what can you ask a Copilot or Gemini to do? And then it becomes very open-ended, right? And open-endedness sometimes is scary, and we don't know where to start, and we have writer's block. And for sure, there's a lot of thought required, but you can actually also start from what is your top problem right now, and what data do you have that connects to that problem? A lot of times it is worth starting from the problem, and I actually would always recommend that, where you can take your top problem, reason about what data do you have, and that act might actually lead you to uncover data that you didn't think you had. So there is a lot of data that in organizations is implicit or hidden or not exposed well. And usually that is where you get all the context. And sometimes data is hidden in people's heads, and that's a little bit harder. But even now with tools like transcription and meeting notes that get generated automatically, all of a sudden the data that is in people's heads that comes out on a call can be somehow extracted and put into these tools. So it may be a gradual process for now where this volume of data gets built out, but over time it just gets better and better and better. And I would link this back to a phrase that I've heard, which is AI right now is the worst it will ever be. So we'll only ever get better. And it is worth investing in having, get ready for AI. For me, means make sure that we are capturing all the data that we need and that we have it visible somehow. Now, there are also point solutions, right? nPlan is very specific and very verticalized onto, let's say one of our clients, hypothetically, is a railway that may or may not go from London to Manchester. And it is very specifically designed for those types of projects and those types of customers. So it probably won't fit what you need. The chambers have very varied types of businesses. But if you have a thought of what do I need, what do I require to solve that top problem, there may also be point solutions or vertical AI companies that are designed to solve that type of problem. And there's so many. And in those cases, you don't even need the structured data usually for these companies, right? They will have built systems because they're AI companies, and that's what they make their living off of. They will have built systems to capture the data, to capture the unstructured data and turn it into something that can be used. And this is incredibly powerful. And I think the ground entry level is, I'm going to call it operations of a company. Right? If we look at emails, invoicing, that kind of stuff, where everybody needs it, and that's where the Copilot and Gemini and those type of platforms will be very useful. And there, the key point is have that data and have it in that platform. And then you can come up with all sorts of problems that need to be solved. And the other one is you can go out and find point solutions for what the specific top issues of your organization are. And I'm sorry for having to leave it a little bit generic, but because of the variety of the businesses, if you do have specific problems that you'd love to talk about and run some ideas and bounce something off me, please do get in touch. I love talking about this. I most likely won't have anything to sell you. I mean, also, if you do think you're in the category where we can help you, I would love to have that conversation, but this is not what this is about, right? And I think this is where I love being an advocate for using AI well, especially because if you think about your competitors, which you may or may not have many, but right now, there aren't many that are moving fast with AI, but a lot of them are already thinking about it and asking these questions. So a key differentiator to have that leverage early on is how quickly can we get that data into the right place, and not even necessarily into the right format anymore, but just make it exist. And that's my call to action. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Alan.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Alan. Yeah, it's interesting because construction's not an industry that you associate with AI, but obviously there's full of opportunities there. So now our third speaker is Neelam, founder of Smart Skills Workshop, and Neelam is a well-being speaker and a workshop leader who empowers employees and young people with practical tools. So Neelam, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm obviously sharing my screen. Can I just check everybody can hear me okay and see the
We
slides?
can
Yeah.
hear you perfectly and see you.
Wonderful, that's fantastic. Okay, so yes, absolutely. I am not a sort of a technical person by any means, but I have had quite a lot of experience. I deliver workshops to just basically help teams with mindset, but also just digital literacy skills. So, you know, I'm going very much with the position of some people haven't even ever experimented with AI before. They might have had some bad experiences with it or have heard horror stories. They're a little bit wary of it. So I'm really just here to say to you that there are some very safe, simple things that you can do to drive productivity and enhance your business by playing around with simple tools. And probably one of my favorites is the large language model, the AI generative model, ChatGPT, which is developed by OpenAI, and it's very kind of like commonly and widely used. And, you know, sometimes even if we feel a little bit scared, I think, of implementing technology, if kind of the big boys are doing it, we think to ourselves, well, okay, if it's okay for them, it's okay for us. And the fact that you've got organizations like Goldman who are, you know, obviously very nervous about, you know, their data and about the security, the fact that they have created their own version of ChatGPT that is being used now by their employees, I think it just speaks volume as to the power of a tool like ChatGPT or any other large language model. And I love the way that you know, their IT team have actually described it. They have said, think of this as another employee. Just think of this as somewhere you can go on and tap and answer, or just like how you might send an email to a colleague saying, hey, I'm a bit stuck on this, can you help me? And look at the quality of the answer that comes back. And I think that kind of power of, for you running your own business or people in your teams running businesses, if you're a team of 10 people now, I would argue to you that ChatGPT as a tool potentially makes you feel like you've got 20 people on your team rather than 10. And that's really, really powerful if we come back to the sort of things that, you know, Alan was talking about before, and Robin as well, in terms of, you know, leveraging this as a competitive advantage and seeing it as a great opportunity. So very quickly, what I thought I would do is, rather than just talk at you, why don't I just get you guys to give me some input? So let's use the chat log, keep this nice and interactive, and let's really sort of understand how much you all know at the moment and what your thoughts are about things. Let's start with, you know, just a nice, simple true and false. Question number one. Google did some research and actually found, right, that people in workers, this isn't in their private life, in office environments, on average, could save up to 122 hours of their time just by using generative AI models like ChatGPT. Who thinks that's true, or who thinks I'm just kind of like putting a really radical stat up there just to kind of like scare you all a bit? Okay, true so far. Okay, you know what? I'm going to ask the second question. I'm going to come back to this, right? Research has been done, interestingly, by Harvard Business Review, who have actually gone out and asked people, what are you using large language models for? And 30% has come back saying, we are using it for personal support, typically mental health therapy. Right? Typically things like personal tasks, help me with, how can I optimize my CV for this job that I want to go for? Again, who thinks that's true, or who thinks 30% is a bit of a high number? Have we got any falses here, or we've got all trues? I think okay, well, do you know what, right? I think you guys sound like you know your stuff, because both are true, right? And that's the Google article, and that's the model on the right-hand side, the research from Harvard. What's interesting, in fact, about the research on Harvard is that blue sort of like circle on the top right, it was at number 3 in 2024, and actually it's the latest research that's brought it right back to the top. Now, clearly, nobody would say that, ChatGPT is an official diagnosis or a sort of a medical tool, but they did research in places where people can't afford to access doctors or mental health support, and in the absence of that, being able to just tap into something and say, this is how I'm feeling at the moment, give me some tools to help me with it, it's very, very viable. In fact, I read this morning on LinkedIn that, and this is true, I'm telling you, that there is now an AI-powered hospital set up in China that is diagnosing 10,000 patients a day using AI-powered tools. So, where it's, where it's going in the health industry is just incredible. But content creation and editing is, again, very, very powerful. And interestingly, what OpenAI thought would happen was that the tool would be heavily used for research, is still very low down in terms of the take up. So look, let's move on then. The free version of ChatGPT sources answers directly from the web. Who thinks that's true, or do you disagree? Is that a false to you? Okay, seeing some trues come through. Anybody else? Okay. Okay, oh, we're getting a few falses come through. Okay, well, look, well done to the falses, because you've got it there. You're absolutely right. So you actually need to be, so the free version of the model, I'm going to explore this in a little bit more detail in a second, is basically written on some data that's been input, and the model has been trained. And the last revision of that input was 2023. So now, unless you move up to one of the paid versions, which is ChatGPT 4, where you're actually searching the web, when you're just inputting the answer to a question, it's only using the data that it's been trained on up till 2023. And I'll talk through the difference. You're absolutely right. Sometimes it hallucinates as well. So thank you very much, Becky, for saying that. What basically hallucinate means is that the program is getting itself a little bit confused about whether that data actually exists on the internet. So it might make up URLs, it might make up responses. And I would certainly say that if you're using it to ask yourself questions, you would want to sort of like verify the answer. So as an example, ChatGPT wrote these questions for me, and it also wrote the answers, and I had to take a view as to whether I agreed with it or not. And I'll tell you a couple where I disagree in a second. So let's go on to question number 4. ChatGPT, can it be used to translate emails or documents into multiple languages? Who's got a view on that? True or false? Absolutely true. So well done, people that are saying true there. And the reason why I've included that is because I just wanted you to get like a view. Again, it's not an official translated service, but if you have had an email from, potentially a client who's maybe in another country, writing in another language, you've now got the opportunity, without having to pay, translators or invest in translation tools, to just, to change the game, maybe compete with other providers that were in that country. Gives you a view, I think, of just how powerful the tool is. Number 5, ChatGPT automatically encrypts and stores sensitive data for future use. Again, what does anybody think? True or false on that? Okay, seeing a false. Anybody else got any views? Actually, true, false. Okay, do you know what? The answer is it is absolutely false, right? It is not encrypting the data. It's not storing it. And that's got huge implications. You know, I watch things on social media all the time, and people have got such innovative uses of tools like ChatGPT. I really do take my hat off to them. But, you know, I watched one yesterday where somebody said, I've uploaded my last 6 months of bank statements and asked ChatGPT to give me recommendations on how I can save money and just be better at financial planning. You know, an absolutely excellent idea. You know, unless I redacted some data in terms of my account number and my name and my address, I would not be putting that into ChatGPT. And you need to be really, really careful. So, you know, if you want to ask the platform to, I don't know, draft a client email for you or respond to an RFP, you know, that's a brilliant thing that you could do. It might be something that would take you days, and the tool can like generate it in just seconds. But just be careful that, you know, when then you use the data, cut and paste it into a Word document or whatever template you're using that's got your client data. But, you know, just the stuff that goes into ChatGPT, just, you know, be mindful that it's the same as you wouldn't, if it's not a piece of data that you would feel comfortable just leaving on a train seat for anybody else in the train carriage to read, then don't put that into ChatGPT. You know, it's the same level. You just don't want public eyes on your data, is definitely what I would say. So number 6, right? The ChatGPT in the UK is available in 2 options. You can either have a free version or a paid version with more advanced features. True or false? What do people think about that? True, getting some trues. Okay, do you know what? If you said true, I'm going to say to you, you can give yourself 6 out of 6. You got that right. And if you said that false, I would also let you still have the question, because I worded it in a little bit of a tricky way, because actually there's 4 packages available within the UK. So if you haven't used ChatGPT up till now, I would absolutely encourage you to use it. I would definitely tell you, go and log in to the free package. The model has recently been upgraded. You now get access to 4.mini, which is a very, very comprehensive package. There is some availability now to search the web. The reason why I said it was false before is because it only gives you a certain amount, a small amount of search facility, and then you need to upgrade. So what they're trying to do is lure you in to say, look how brilliant we are. Now you're really enjoying using this platform. Then you need to sort of upgrade to the next package up. Again, very limited access, but in theory, you can upload data files. You know, one that's very dear to my heart and topical at the moment is my daughter's just doing her A-levels. So, you know, if you've got children that are kind of like studying, it's an absolutely fantastic study tool. So she's doing a maths A-level where she will regularly, you know, do a paper, upload it and say to ChatGPT, take me through everything that I got right, tell me what I got wrong, help me focus, build a study plan on things I need to improve on. So this ability to upload, you know, you can really get creative with this fantastic tool. The one I would recommend as soon as you've started to sort of get a little bit comfortable and found ways that you can save time for yourself personally or in your business is the Plus one, because it just allows that versatility to do things like create images, gives you more sort of capacity for uploading files and searching on the internet. Pro really is about, you know, coding and quite technical. So unless you're in that field, I would say you don't need to get involved with that. And they do actually have a team package for companies where you can just basically have sort of 2 subscribers, and it just keeps the sort of the platform a bit more confidential between 2 people. So that £25 is probably better than paying the $20 a month. So in summary, these would be my tips to anybody who wants to start to play around with ChatGPT. Make sure you get the best out of it. There is an awful lot said about you need to be some kind of engineering whiz or a bit of a prompt guru to get the best out of ChatGPT. You know what? I would say don't worry too much. One of the things people say is that you need to word your prompt really well. Well, do you know what, right? Go into ChatGPT and ask it to word the prompt for you. So something like like, you know, build me a prompt to make sure that I capture all the right things to ask you to build me a business plan, right? It's going to come back and give you very comprehensive context-based wording. You can then cut and paste that same wording into a fresh chat prompt and, you know, just watch the magic happen. Giving it some context. So act as a receptionist, act as a tutor, act as my business assistant, act as a doctor, act as a social media marketing expert. The minute you integrate those words, what you are doing is creating so much context, and you will see the richness of your answers. There's lots of other things that you can do. You will start to notice, and people are getting a little bit tired of saying, oh, I can tell when things are written by ChatGPT. And so there are things you can do to sort of, you know, improve the quality of what you get back. You can go into your settings and basically give it instructions that it saves in its memory for every prompt response that it gives you back. So things like keep things concise, you know, write in UK English, you know, kind of like, you know, don't spell words in the end with I-Z-E if it should be I-S-E. And all these things you'll see really improve the quality of what you get back. A complaint that I often hear is that people will say into ChatGPT, here are 3 things I want you to improve. Point number 1, and then they press return and it just generates the prompt straight away. But if you can just get into that mindset of holding the shift key down when you press enter, it allows you to type point number 2. Same thing again, shift, and then you'll get the same, you'll get the chance to enter your 3rd line. It's just practice of playing with the tool, knowing these little styles of how to communicate with it, and then seeing the response that you get back. So in summary, the other thing I would say that's very important is when you're going to play around with it, especially when you go into the App Store, and interesting, I've seen a question come up about DeepSeek as well. There are lots of imitations, so make sure you use the right URL, make sure that you, you know, look for that specific logo, the one, the sort of the white brain cloudy looking one with the black lines going around it. As Robin said, I have also produced a checklist just to help you with a bit more detail on some of the things that I've explained, and with and they're included in the sort of like the pack. Obviously, if you'd like more support on teaching your team on how to start using something like ChatGPT in your business, then you're most welcome to get in touch with me. What I'll do is I'll leave the questions just to the Q&A section, if that's okay, and I will now move on to my our next sort of expert speaker in the panel. Over to you, David.
Thank you very much. And hopefully everyone can now hear me. And a big thank you to the team that helped put this presentation together, and to the West London Chambers of Commerce. I should explain that I'm actually a consultant lawyer. I've come into many years now of looking at data risk, data governance, and then into looking at how AI is changing the whole scene. And I had the ambitious plan initially of talking for a bit longer, so I put together a more extensive set of slides, which we're just going to do a whistle-stop tour through now, because I felt it still was important to illustrate the breadth of take-up of AI across so many different fields. We've heard from nPlan in a specific area of construction, but I've been intrigued as a regulatory lawyer by seeing it appear in medical research, pharmaceutical development. In my own legal world, it's having huge impact because of its vast research capabilities and the differences between how a Goldman Sachs might develop a closed system and protect it for confidential information against the risks of an open system, where, as Neelam pointed out, you'd be very probably unwise to put your input documents in, and the evident risks of cybersecurity. So with Neelam's help, can we just go one slide after another? And I'll very quickly make an observation that in my type of work, looking at how AI stores your data, particularly in the cloud, particularly on servers that are remote, particularly across borders, particularly as data moves and has to comply with the GDPR, which since 2018 has been on most people's lips, means I need to look again closely at data privacy notices, at For larger companies, certainly they do data protection impact assessments, and I'd encourage smaller SMEs to similarly now look at that governance tool. And I'll come on to how it helps you with areas like cybersecurity in just a moment. So let's leave the evolution and move on to perhaps the spread of AI. It's everywhere now, and it has been for quite some time. But as Neelam points out and others, we're seeing it far more evidently with ChatGPT and Gemini and Copilot. And I'm seeing it in my legal world with tools, very specialized tools called CoCounsel, LexisNexis AI. The big legal data animals are producing these tools, and they are displacing jobs, which is one of the risks we could talk about. They are requiring extra usage, but also training for cyber security, training for people who are developing these systems. And I'm just going to close my chat box, which is my slides, because I just illustrate here that we're seeing it inside military developments, the waging of wars with drone technology, with robotic technology, medical technologies. And I've particularly become interested in how the trolley principle will apply within AI for driverless cars, and the ethical, philosophical, and governance issues. So, and that's before we talk about some of the more specific legal prerequisites of how to deal with intellectual property and copywriting. But for the moment, let's just move on another slide, please. I also put together a type of a development process. I'm a lawyer. I'm not actually a particular techie. I rely on the family, the children, and others to keep me up to speed on this, because I've begun to realize that if I'm going to give relevant compliance and legal advice to many of you in SMEs and larger companies, I need to know more about how the algorithms have been developed. Bad data in means bad output. And we're beginning to question, like deep fake or ChatGPT, exactly how these large language models were trained. What was the data they were given, apart from hallucination and bias? Bias is a particularly big problem if you feed in gender related data, or you give it a certain skewing in the way you write the algorithms. So yes, we've been interested in how regulations are developing in the United States versus how they are being developed in China. And we've all heard that if you put Tiananmen Square in, you get no answer from DeepSeek, but you can find devices to get around that obstacle by giving it a sort of coded instruction. Perhaps the next slide, please. And just to let you know that as a lawyer, you now have to go dipping into GDPR. You've got in the UK a white paper, and increasingly there's legislation like the Investigatory Powers Act, human rights legislation, GDPR, and we still very much look over our shoulders at what's happening in the EU environment, because, of course, they are providing us with regulations if we do business in Europe. And I'd like to move on to the next slide as I run short of time, and I know you want to discuss other matters. So lawyers are concerning themselves across the Western world in who owns the AI-generated content, particularly where you develop an agent that sits on top of a chat GPT. And at the moment, it's believed that a computer cannot have a copyright, and it cannot necessarily own a patent. But this is still a developing debate, as you've probably heard in the music, art and literature worlds, where artists are campaigning very, very vociferously to see protection of their copyright material. And that's one of the problems that any lawyer or compliance or managerial team has to worry about, which is that the regulatory world is a changing one as the technology changes. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to ask you, because time is short, to take me right through to my end slide, a special slide I put together for this talk. Thank you. I wanted just to come to the key issues for AI users. I wanted to say that in the cybersecurity world, both the bad actors that we've heard about for the last 10 years are getting more sophisticated as they use AI for phishing and malware. And on the other side, I'm listening to and seeing presentations and using software that is pretty expensive generally, but it's getting more sophisticated in integrating AI to identify false red flags, to alerting more rapidly data invasion. And nevertheless, we're still hearing about major attacks on our Marks and Spencer's, Co-op, and it's very alarming that these larger companies are not better protected, and we'll hear and learn more as the regulators investigate. This holding of data in the cloud that particularly got accelerated during lockdown has meant that the issue comes up increasingly about data farms, remote servers, and how are they protected, or at least how are the hardware and software systems that you are tapping into protected, and the investigations that you as an SME might have to make in terms of analyzing the third-party processes that you work with. You are probably in the intermediary category of being a deployer of AI. You're not a developer necessarily, and you're free of reliability if you're just a user. But as a middleman, you can be liable to ICO investigations, GDPR, and to being pursued by legal action. So AI is very much a beautiful new vehicle, car, driving down a road, which has got quite a few potholes in it. It's got traffic signs. It's got a highway code of its own now developing. And that is something I wanted to talk to you about, that you need to be concerned with transparency, particularly as a big principle here in the UK, as well as in the EU. And there are systems that are being prohibited by EU regulation, not yet by UK regulation, particularly where they are looking at areas that might be biomedically biased or that could prejudice human rights. And there are a number of areas that we would, as lawyers or compliance officers, alert you to. And therefore, you should be constantly considering the validity of your systems and removing systems, data, protecting processes that could possibly conflict with developing regulations. And if you get it wrong, in theory at least, the fines can be very large, up to sort of 35 million US dollars in EU regulations or euros, as well as being up to 6 or 7% of worldwide revenues. What are these particular risks that we're seeing? Well, we've heard about hallucinations. We've talked a little bit about the fact that there can be a bias in the input and a bias in the output, and you can be conflicting with employment regulations, employment laws, if you use a bias in employing staff or in dismissing your staff. You've also got to worry about not just a hallucination, but the fact that some of these systems, ChatGPT, can be out of date with its answers. And we've now seen, for example, in America, we've just had one case here in the UK of a barrister who presented a case, used authorities that were fictitious, made up by the AI engine, and is going to be reprimanded, apparently, we believe, by both, has been verbally reprimanded by the judge in that case and possibly by the Bar Council. So there are risks of negligence and claims that could arise from AI. And in order to assist SMEs, I'm very happy to come along and talk about this further and in more detail and clarify some of the points I've made. And I've developed a checklist which I believe we can post and make available to you to check through your data compliance and your AI compliance. And that, hopefully, gives us enough 10 minutes or so to take questions and answers. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, David, and thanks to all the speakers. So now we have about just 10 minutes for some questions. So please use the Q&A panel to send in your queries, and we'll try and answer as many as we can. So the first question is, what are the best AI programs to use for business promotion videos? So it's an open question to anyone who can answer that.
Alan, that must be your bag for sure, surely.
Sorry, you were breaking up. Can you repeat the question?
Yes, sorry. What are the best AI programs to use for business promotion videos?
Ooh. So there are a couple of tools that I love using. So if you're doing business promotion videos, I guess it also depends a little bit on what the business is, but OpenAI's Sora is great for generating videos. Google has VO for generating videos. There's usually with a video, you'd like to add some form of music, I can imagine. So it would be something like Suno, for example, for generating some music to use. And then I think you still want to edit it and stitch it together, but those tools generate a lot of effectively what you would call B-roll as well. So if you're making a video and you need some B-roll for the video, that is a very good a good tool for that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
So
Oh, yeah.
and the other answer is, Alan, of course, is Ask GPT 4.5. Yes, you'll get a list, and you can also it will give you a set of recommendations, and you can also specify what you actually want it to do, and it'll give you an answer with regard to these specifications.
Okay, how much should I use AI in my marketing communications? I have seen talk on LinkedIn recently warning against overuse of AI communications.
Yes. Neelam, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that one if you don't mind. Yeah, really, really interesting point. I would say that a hybrid model is absolutely what you want to do. So you could use ChatGPT as an example to generate 30 random fruits, and then get ChatGPT to write a social media post around every fruit that it has named, because you will create totally unique content. What I would say is that, proofread it, make it authentic, put it in your own words, keep it short, put it back into ChatGPT to get it to rewrite it if you only want to keep it to like 100 words. So I would say, think about what I talked about before, where this is your assistant, not your replacement. So, get it to do some grunt work for you so that you're using your clever, articulate, creative brain to finesse it, make it sound like you, make it interesting. And so it's a supporter, but it doesn't do all the work for you.
Okay.
Right.
Sorry, Robin, go ahead.
Yeah, this is another point about business applications. I would look at the applications you're using for your marketing at the moment and just see how much these providers are investing in AI. There are a number of mainly American businesses, obviously, who have invested heavily in AI into their marketing software, and it makes a huge difference. And it allows you to personalize emails, and personalization will be a big thing for the future. So it's a very big area to start looking and make sure you're investing in your monthly subscriptions the right marketing software provider.
Hey.
I'm going to chip in and just say that when you use these softwares, it should really be the case that you check them to ensure that if they are using personal data in any way to develop very targeted marketing, you should be collecting that information on a register of processing under GDPR rules. And under GDPR rules, if there's any automated profiling that goes on, you are required to notify your target market that you're using automated profiling. So there's a disclaimer that should really accompany these sorts of, and it not just a communicate, but a marketing exercise where you're gathering data and then process it through a ChatGPT type.
Okay. Are there any dangers in using DeepSeek rather than ChatGPT?
I have a lot of opinions about DeepSeek. I did a series of videos and podcast appearances about it. I think dangers in using DeepSeek, the models. So I think like maybe we need to make a distinction because DeepSeek is a company, but they built a number of models which they've open sourced, but they also have their own app. So if you're using the DeepSeek app, then that is getting processed in China, and China has very specific regulations about retention of anything that goes through any information systems. But if you're using the model, there are a lot of platforms that now host the DeepSeek models. So Hugging Face is the one that everybody uses in AI development, and they have their own chat platform, and you can switch whatever model you want to use. DeepSeek is one of them that is hosted and run in the US. Nothing will ever go back to either China or DeepSeek as an organization because they just copied the model. So there are also just completely safe ways of using it. Now, there are some things about how DeepSeek has been trained where because it's been trained a lot on Chinese data as well, there's effects of the censorships that happen in China, which may mean that that you'll have, mixed bag of results. But I think it is also a very powerful model, and the reasoning engine inside it is really good.
Our government tells us that the USA and China they're the next biggest investor in AI. Do you see this as true, Alan?
I'm going to say 90% of, it's a finger in the air estimate, but 90% of capital that goes into AI comes from US or China. So if you look at the investment that happens in the UK and European ecosystem, it is a small percentage.
Okay.
And in fact, even like European AI companies like Mistral took pretty much 90% of their money from the US.
Okay, I read this question wrong. So our government tells us that we are the next biggest investor in AI after USA and China. Do you see this as true as well?
I'd like it to be true. I've known Matt Clifford for a very long time. Before being part of the government, he was at Entrepreneur First, which is the incubator that nPlan came out of. I'd like it to be true. I think there are a lot of things that still need to happen, and we're sort of there-ish. There's a lot of competition between effectively France and the UK, I would say, are the two markets. But again, like you have first and second, and then third is a long way down in terms of like capital, capability, number of companies.
There's one question here. It says, as a startup, what funding options are available and how do we best protect our IP? That is open to everyone.
That must be one for you, David, surely, IP?
I'm trying to think of a fully practical answer in the sense that it is not yet clear under the Copyright Act who owns copyright in newly developed products from a large language model. And on the other side, no action has yet, apparently, I don't think, started in the UK about breaches of copyright by those who own it, artists, musicians, and various other artists who have copyright. And so we're in somewhat uncharted waters if I'm asked who owns the copyright in the new product. It looks as though whereas there is copyright in software writing, that you can achieve that in the basic model algorithm that you've developed, but not necessarily in the output from the AI system.
Thank you. I'm going to wrap it up here because I see that it's now 11 o'clock. So it's the end of today's webinar. So we hope that it was helpful to everyone, and especially to all small and medium-sized businesses out there. A big thank you to our speakers and everyone for joining us. So we'll be sending up a follow-up email later with the resources and the link, and of course the panelist information. So if you have any other questions, you can go and ask them. Until next time, goodbye and take care.
And thank you, Ina, for organizing it, your team organizing it. We know
Thank
it's a lot of work, so thank you very much.
you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.